And here we are on the Newsmaker show live this morning with Assemblywoman Marjorie Byrnes. We have quite the lineup this morning. Right now we're going to be talking with Assemblywoman Marjorie Byrnes. Coming up at 9, the doctors and the CEO of St. James Hospital, Dr. Brian O'Donovan. And coming up at 9:30, Mayor John Buckley. So we got packed house today on Newsmaker lineups, 3 in a row. Welcoming now Assemblywoman Marjorie Byrnes. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, and hello to all of your listeners.
Assemblywoman Byrnes, where do we start? COVID-19. As we said on the news just moments ago, we're up to 11 cases now in Steuben County. 3 new cases announced yesterday. Assemblywoman Byrnes, you must be hearing from the mayors and the town supervisors and the other state lawmakers. What's the latest on your end?
Yes, I am, and I have been in contact at different times with Mayor Buckley and a number of different supervisors, as well as people throughout the state Senate and congressmen. There's a whole chain of individuals, both government and private, and we have conference calls multiple times a day that you can get involved with in order to keep abreast of all the changes on a constant basis in every region of the state. And it's important because, as you know, I live up in Livingston County, and I rely a lot on reading the local papers and listening to the local radio stations. And talking to the mayor and people who live down there to stay abreast of what's going on.
Assemblywoman, one of the things we're going to be talking about at 9:30 with Mayor John Buckley is the sales tax and the effects of COVID-19 on municipalities' abilities to tax. Your thoughts there?
I think that's one of the reasons that even though we're getting very close to April 1st, we still have not returned to Albany to work on the state budget. I think there are a lot of concerns at the state level, certainly at the local level, about what decreases, what hits there's going to be in sales tax revenue. And I'm sure that they're trying to get a grasp of that on the state level before we sit down over the next couple of days to work out the budget. This is going to be very difficult for the mayor and for all the local municipalities. Sales tax is something that they rely on very heavily. And there's no question that when our companies are basically shutting down here, although for a very good reason, but when they're shutting down and that sales tax money isn't coming in, it doesn't flow down to the different organizations and government entities that rely on it to operate.
Assemblywoman Marjorie Byrnes, when I talk to people, I get mixed reactions. Some of them are very much in agreement with the business shutdown because they're very concerned about the spread of COVID-19. Others I speak with, while they're concerned about the spread of COVID-19 or even catching it themselves, wonder if there's been some overreach here. Far be it from me right now to be criticizing Governor Andrew Cuomo or President Donald Trump and their reactions to it, but I would be interested. What are the other state lawmakers that you talk to saying about the way things are going with all the shutdowns and all of the new rules that we find ourselves under with COVID-19?
I hear things back and forth. There's a number of companies that have asked to be declared essential so that they can keep working and producing products that they think are essential and necessary. And then by the same token, a number of their employees might be calling me up asking that they be shut down because they're concerned about going into the work environment and potentially catching something. So it's one of those things that can cut both ways. The reality, though, is, and you're experiencing this right now in Steuben in the Hornell region, is that it is still spreading. And it is a huge public safety issue. We do need to make sure that we do everything we can to get a grip on the spread of this virus. And one of the reasons that we've been, I think, able to keep it slower than it would have been is because people are staying home more and more companies are closed. But it's really important that as soon as reasonably possible, we start getting businesses open, back to work, and also making sure that at the state level, and I know they're doing this at the federal level, that we can get programs in place to help small businesses, to help employees who've been displaced and are now trying to get on unemployment or otherwise trying to find jobs. And also there's a group of self-employed who find themselves in a void because they're not eligible for unemployment as being self-employed, but yet they can't go out and work and earn a living. So there's a whole lot of people that are suffering a lot, and we need to make sure that as soon as possible we do what we can do as a community and as a state and as a country to make sure we help everybody get back on their feet.
Is there, would you say there's a consensus or any kind of upstate Republican lawmaker feeling about what Governor Andrew Cuomo said about sending the young people back to work first because they seem to have the best resistance? That seems to be where Governor Andrew Cuomo is going at the moment when the governor is asked during press conferences, do you agree with President Trump on the Easter, opening everything up on the Easter deadline? That's how the governor answers. He says, first, we're going to get the young people back to work. Do you, Assemblywoman Marjorie Byrnes, or the other upstate Republicans have any thoughts on that?
I can only speak for myself, but I think it's important that we get everybody back to work. Because certainly we want to get young people or the younger members of society. The older I get, the more people I consider younger underneath me, age-wise. But we have a whole lot of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s who need to work still in order to provide for their families. And we've got to make sure that anybody who is physically able and healthy, that we get them back into the workforce as soon as possible.
Speaking live this morning with Assemblywoman Marjorie Byrnes on the topic of Governor Andrew Cuomo. He's been doing morning briefings every morning, usually 10 a.m., 11 a.m. Most of the time they've been at 11 a.m. and go about an hour right till noon. The most recent statement he's made is from what I could see this morning on the morning headlines online. Cuomo says the U.S. Senate's $2 trillion coronavirus bill would be terrible for New York State. And pardon me to the listeners, as I had previewed this one, it says that the when you know it, pop-up boxes. It says the massive stimulus bill, according to Governor Andrew Cuomo, to combat the impact of the coronavirus does not provide nearly enough for New York State. And it says that Cuomo's criticism came as White House officials made it clear that President Trump planned to sign a massive relief bill into law as soon as it hits his desk. Your thoughts there on what the governor's saying about the Senate's bill for the coronavirus, Assemblywoman Byrnes?
I know where he's coming from, and what he's looking at is that for the population of our state, that the percentage that we are receiving in this stimulus is, in many cases, dramatically less than the percentage that other states are getting in proportion to their population. And that is certainly a concern. I don't know all of the details of the stimulus because obviously I haven't been privy to it since I'm not a member of Congress or the Senate. However, I'm looking at the fact that our representatives in Congress and in the Senate throughout the state, I believe, voted for it. I know unanimously in the Senate, and I believe overwhelmingly in Congress too. So that, I have to presume that they've made evaluations and have made a determination that while the bill may not be the best for New York, that it was the best for the country, and we'll roll with it, and hopefully anything that needs to be supplemented at the state level to make sure that any inadequacies or any areas that have been left out are covered. I'm confident that when we get back up to Albany within the next day or two, those areas will be encompassed in our state budget. And again, one of the reasons they've been holding off on the state budget was to be able to look at what the federal stimulus package was going to be. And once they had a better idea of hard numbers and more details, they would have a better ability to develop our state budget. And I'm very confident that that's one of the reasons we haven't been in Albany this week, is because the governor and the head of the Senate and the Assembly are working out those details and watching what happens at the federal level very closely.
I'm on Governor Andrew Cuomo's Twitter page right now. He posted around 9 p.m. last night that SoftBank donated 1.4 million N95 masks to us. New York State thanks you. So grateful for this PPE that helps out. One of the big things the governor has been pushing for is ventilators. And there's been some back and forth. President Trump last night during his press conference seemed to indicate that he'd been on the phone just before the press conference with Governor Cuomo and that things were good between the two as of last night. On the issue of ventilators, did you have any thoughts there, Assemblywoman Byrnes?
Well, hopefully we won't need the ones that the number that the governor is right now thinking we're going to need. But certainly could be a possibility. It looks like things are slowing down a little bit in the New York City area. Not that the numbers down there are good, don't get me wrong. But they had originally projected a new incident rate much greater than in the last few days what looks like it's coming into. So hopefully the social distancing and staying at home is working, which is obviously the game plan. But I really am confident that between our president and the governor, despite some of the bantering politically that goes on between the two of them, that they will make sure that New York State is taken care of. I'm very confident of that.
Latest on that, and I'm getting this from WRVO.org. And this is just a few hours old. Governor Andrew Cuomo says he's been working closely with President Donald Trump's son-in-law and top White House aide Jared Kushner to get ventilators as the number of coronaviruses continue to escalate in New York State. Cuomo said getting enough ventilators is the single greatest challenge. And he said that Jared Kushner, who's also from New York State, has been extraordinarily helpful. It says the article here says the governor, as we know, has wanted 30,000 ventilators, and says the state already had 4,000 ventilators in the hospitals. New York is getting from the feds an additional 4,000. And Cuomo's praising Jared Kushner and President Trump on this issue. Any thoughts there on this article, Assemblywoman Byrnes?
No, other than the fact that it does sound, as we all hope, that our elected officials at every level, federal and state and local, are all working together and doing our best for our communities. So that's what sticks out to me, is somehow they're going to get it done, and they're going to make sure that we and people in other areas of need, also other states, ultimately get the products that we need, because the ventilators are very important, but also the acronyms. This world is run by acronyms. The PPE, the personal protection equipment, we get that to our medical personnel. Their gloves, the shields, the gowns, all those things that are so important. And we think about it all the time with reference to our hospitals and our medical personnel, but I've gotten a lot of calls also from corrections officers, and they're very concerned because within the prison system, more and more individuals are becoming positive for the virus, and within the prison system, they're worried that they don't have enough of the PPE, the personal protection equipment, in order to help them or to assist them in not getting the disease. So it's really incredibly important at every phase of our society that we look at who is in need and make sure to the best of our ability we take care of them.
We're going to take a quick break, check the forecast. We'll be back in just a moment with Assemblywoman Marjorie Byrnes. And coming up at 9 o'clock, we have Dr. Ismail Mayer from St. James and Dr. John Robshaw from St. James. And coming up at 9:30, Mayor John Buckley. We'll be back in just a moment with Assemblywoman Marjorie Byrnes.
The Ryan Agencies, your local, independent insurance agencies. The Ryan Agency employs 15 of your friends and neighbors. They live, shop, and support our community. When you buy insurance from the Ryan Agency, you support local families. Contact the Ryan Agencies today, your local source for all things insurance.
Insurance protection you can rely on. The Ryan Agency.
Checking in with meteorologist Rob Carroll, and he says it's going to rain. The question is, when does that start?
When does it start, Brian? Well, it depends on what day you ask. If you ask about today, it could be passing through the area this afternoon. If you ask about Saturday, it's probably in the afternoon. If you ask about Sunday, it's probably all day. Yes, unfortunately, we've got a wet weather pattern developing for the region today. Not terrible, not great. We've got a lot of cloudiness out there this morning, though. Once you get to the west of, looks like Corning, you get into a little bit of sunshine that lasts all the way into Cleveland this morning. And I think a few breaks of sun are not out of the question, nor is a passing shower. Got a very weak cold front trying to push through the western third of the state this morning. A few showers are showing up over the eastern Finger Lakes and then back around Buffalo. So we may see a shower today. Temperatures up near 60. Tonight, though, it's a weak area of low pressure. It travels along a frontal boundary from South Dakota through Minnesota and right through the southern tier. So there'll be some periods of rain overnight. We're 40 to 45. That ends early tomorrow. We'll actually turn partly sunny for the afternoon. Highs tomorrow 50 to 55. We're partly cloudy tomorrow night 30 to 35. Another stronger storm heads our way Saturday. Cloudy and breezy with rain developing in the afternoon, 50 to 55. Leftover showers windy, Brian. We could be well up into the 60s on Sunday. Sunrise this morning was at straight up 7 o'clock. It sets tonight at 7:30.
Back with Republican Assemblywoman Marjorie Byrnes. Assemblywoman Byrnes, I'm on your Facebook page here. It says self-employed individuals are currently not eligible for unemployment insurance. And they want to make some changes to this at the state level, but you're waiting to see what the federal government does. It also says the $35,000 public pension limitation for individuals under 65 has not been eliminated to date for retired nurses or healthcare professionals who return to work at hospitals. In response to COVID-19. Wanted to get your thoughts on those two issues, Assemblywoman Byrnes.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, individuals who are self-employed normally are not eligible for unemployment, and this is a huge issue because there's an awful lot of people who are self-employed in any number of different capacities, and they find themselves totally cut out by the system right now. And I think there should be a way of looking at their past income taxes to know that they were and verify that they were earning money, they were working, in order to make sure that we can provide them with some form of unemployment benefits going forward. And there always has been a cap on people who retire from certain jobs in the government, that they can't earn more than a certain threshold amount, or they're penalized, either by losing retirement benefits or in other fashions. And we really need to change that, especially now when we're calling out and asking people who are retired nurses, retired doctors, other individuals who are retired from different medical professions to step back up and come back to work or volunteer in some cases. But in any event, the ones who are coming back to work, and we need to give them an incentive, because if we tell them you can come back to work but only at a certain dollar amount, or you have to stop once you've earned a certain amount, during this particular medical crisis, it's more important to make sure that we have trained people out there working than watching what dollar amount they're earning. So I would be in favor, absolutely, of raising that cap so that we can take care of the situation at hand. You know, we need them, and we're asking them to step back up to the plate, come out of retirement, and help us as a community, as just to be good citizens. And I think that they shouldn't have to be concerned that they would hurt their retirements if they did that. One other thing I want to mention real quick is we talked about the wonderful joining together of all the different levels of government working together, but I forgot to mention all the private companies. I mean, this is becoming a government and private partnership because, you know, you got Cedar Creek down your way making the hand sanitizer now. There's a company up my way that's making the plastic face shields, and many other companies that are jumping into the loop to do the face masks. It's incredible how much private industry has looked at what abilities they have and are retooling to help in this crisis. It's incredibly heartwarming, and I think that also shows us what's in most people's hearts, and that's to help their fellow man.
Reading, we're down to the last couple of minutes from your Facebook page with Assemblywoman Marjorie Byrnes. Here's someone who posted on your Facebook page, I'm a food services substitute for a school district, but we don't get paid when school is closed. Worried about my daughter who's out of school during to the quarantine. Is there anything available for me? I feel like I've fallen through the cracks. You answered, I would check the federal changes to the Federal Leave Act that deals with situations where an employee will be out of work to be home with kids who are out of school. Not sure if your employment status would make you eligible. You should check with unemployment on that. So it looks like digital, online, social media is coming through for the good on a lot of this. So you're able to talk directly to constituents, and it's a great thing.
No, it is. And people like school bus drivers also who get paid when they work, and they're in like the same type of boat. There are a lot of people, regrettably, who are falling through the cracks. And that's why it's important to have this information so that when we are talking as governments about what people are out there and what they need and ways to assist them, we know there are these individuals who may not be a salaried employee but an hourly employee that would fall into different categories and not let them pass by the wayside. We've been incredibly busy on social media with people messaging us, calling us, just leaving comments like the one you mentioned, which needed answers. And we've been able also to reach out to the federal level because a lot of people, in case they don't know, there have been changes made to the Federal Family Leave Act so that if an employee needs to stay home in order to take care of their children because they're not in school right now, there's actually been changes made to the Federal Family Leave Act so that they could qualify for benefits. And we've been able actually to help a local business in the town of Avon who had a question on that. And ironically, we did a conference call with both the employee and the employer to try to find out what the law was. And while it was a federal matter, I was able that evening to speak with a representative from local congressman, get answers, and be able to steer them in the right direction. So I can't say enough how important it is, this allegiance among not just levels of government, but party affiliations mean nothing right now. We're all reaching out and trying to help each other's constituents. The private sector is kicking in, and let's hope like heck that over the next week or so, that by maintaining all the directives of the Department of Health on social distancing and quarantines, that we get a grip on this so that we can move forward.
With that, we have to go. Assemblywoman Marjorie Byrnes, I want to thank you very much for coming on live on Newsmaker this morning.
I thank you for the opportunity to chat. People can get in touch with us either by calling the office, reaching us on by social media. We get back to every single person who contacts us.
Assemblywoman Marjorie Byrnes, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, and stay safe.
AM 1480 WLEA Hornell.